Welcome to a special Halloween edition of the Buffalo Sports Conversation Room. I'm your host, Jamie Malloy, and I'm excited to talk about Week 8 football. But first, we'd like to wish everyone a happy Halloween as I bring on my spooktacular co-host, the spooktacular Mets fan and a spooktacular member of Bills Mafia. Please, everybody, welcome Joe, the spooktacular Dalio. Hey, Joe, how's it going on?
It is going great. I mean, not only do we get to do an excellent football show here tonight, but a Halloween edition as well. So hopefully we can treat our audience to some excellent information here. I got to stick with your spooktacular theme here. Hopefully after all this, people haven't turned us off already. But no, we promise a good show tonight. And again, a special Halloween edition that we get to do as well.
Exactly. We'll try to pass out as many goodies as we can tonight in terms of football news. Not candy, but maybe, who knows? We'll see. Anyway, are you ready to start off with the Thursday night game, which was our game this week versus the Tampa Bay Bucks?
I certainly am. Yes.
Okay, so we shall begin. Thursday night's game, we had the Tampa Bay Bucks taking on our Buffalo Bills in a game where the score really didn't indicate how the Bills dominated the total play. The Bills finally get a win, and Josh played like how Josh does. So, Joe, what did you think of Josh's and the overall play of the team?
You know, overall play of the team. Well, first of all, Josh Allen, played a very solid game, over 100 quarterback rating. And this statistically, and again, I've been saying this the last couple of weeks, you look at the statistics and, like you said, I think the game was a little bit closer. The score was a little bit closer than the action, I guess, or the statistics would indicate, because statistically, again, the Bills played a very solid game. Josh Allen, 324, I think he threw for. Solid wide receiver performances. We were a little concerned, not only you and I, but some other people, other Bills fans that I know. We were all going up like, what's going on with Gabe Davis? And he had a couple of tough games in a row. And we had said this is kind of a pivotal one for him. And if he's out of the action again here, there's some serious concerns. But certainly he addressed all those serious concerns. He was targeted like 12 times, 9 receptions, a touchdown. Yardage-wise, I think he was in the 70s. I forget there. But, very solid performance by Gabe Davis. And, that's good to see. And, Stefon Diggs, maybe not as great a performance as he had previous games, but, still solid, excellent performance and with receptions there. In the mix. And, again, Josh Allen getting on the ball. How about Dalton Kincaid? Finally really getting in the mix. I think he had like 6 receptions, 60, 65 yards, give or take. I looked at these stats earlier. I didn't want to be looking now, but, somewhere in on that line. And, defense by committee, a couple of solid performances, on defense, but generally everybody played pretty solid. And again, I'm wondering and scratching my head, how this was only a 6-point game. But we say it all the time. A win is a win. And certainly they'll take it. And, unlike maybe some of the other wins, against the Giants there, which maybe you could say the Bills got a little lucky there. I don't think that's the case here. I think they played a solid game, and a couple of things didn't go right, and Tampa stayed right with them. But again, solid win, and certainly being 5-3 at this point, not the end of the world. Again, we talked last week, and I expected them to be like 6-2 at this point. But the fact that they're 5-3, not the end of the world here. What did you see, I guess, that stood out to you in that game?
The emphasis of fast and furious about using the no huddle, going tempo more, and to being able to spread the ball around to different people and just keep the offense going at a fast pace. And they're capable of doing that. And Joe, you're you remember this, didn't that feel kind of nostalgic of Jim Kelly and the boys back in the day when they had all these weapons and they would run the no huddle game and they were just in sync and the rhythm and it just seemed like they wouldn't miss a beat. Well, that's what Thursday night's game felt like to me.
I agree with that. I didn't think of it at the time, but I always loved the no huddle back then. And I honestly think the Bills offense could be more effective if they do it more now. So that's a good point. I didn't catch it at that time, but I agree completely with you. I think it is kind of a little bit of a throwback there and, something that can help them be successful now.
Yeah, exactly. On the quest to our first Super Bowl. Now, obviously, they can't do it all the time, but if they do it more often during games, it'll definitely help keep the pace going fast and keeping defenses off their heels and not being able to cover the receivers one-on-one and all that jazz. So.
Right. I was also happy in this game, that again, I'm always saying how I think it's effective for the Bills to run the ball as well. And the last couple of games, they weren't running it as much, and the offense seemed to struggle a little bit. But they ran the ball about 27 times, in this game. And that's another way I think that they can keep defenses guessing and, again, just add another element to the offense there. So, and again, the ball was spread around. I mean, Shakir, again, getting plenty of targets and receptions there. And again, I was very happy with the way they ran the ball too, so.
Yeah, Cookie ran the ball well, another 100-yard game. But what's awesome about Khalil Shakir is they're using him more. And also during the offseason, he was training with former Bills great wide receiver Eric Moulds during the offseason. So I think part of that training and finally using him allowed him to have a career high 92 yards on 6 catches or whatever it was. But yeah, he had a career game.
Yeah,
of that.
Good to see. Good to see. And again with Gabe Davis and again, it's not like Diggs was forgotten in that game. So it's always good to see the ball being spread around a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm definitely glad that we to report that we all did much better in our predictions from this week's game than we did last week. And obviously, Joe, you predicted Tampa 16, Buffalo 27. Mr. Wheels had 21-10 Buffalo, and I had 20-11 Buffalo. So the Bills did win, and we were all right there with our predictions of the final score.
Yeah.
So that's a good day for us at the office here, or
We'll
our virtual office, our computer screen.
Our unofficial prediction center.
Exactly. So now let's make speaking of predictions, let's make our predictions for this Sunday night's game against the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, I think this is going to be a good litmus test to see how the Bills are if they're for real again this year, because this is a revenge game that Cincinnati beat us in the playoffs last year, and the Bills usually do very well in revenge games. And they're also traveling back to the place where the tragic event of Damar Hamlin happened. But luckily, the training staff were heroes and ended up winning an ESPY because of that. So, Joe, do you want to go first? What are your predictions of Sunday night's game?
All right. And, you're talking about the litmus test. I think the entire month of November is a major test for the Bills. I mean, the schedule at this point now gets brutal, with this game. The Denver game, which again, as they proved, I guess the other day, that you can't take them lightly anymore. But then I don't know what order it is, but I mean, you got Dallas in there, you got the Chiefs in there, you got the Eagles in there, you got the Chargers in there. So a huge test coming up for this football team, and we'll see where they stand, in about 6 weeks from now. I think both teams show up. I think, because again, now you're getting a Bengals team that has a healthy Joe Burrow. They just take care of, not took care of business, but kind of upset a little bit, with the 49ers there, and a big win for them. And I've seen this movie 100 times, it seems like now, right? The Bengals starting the season slow, and then all of a sudden waking up and becoming a major Super Bowl contender. And I think we're starting to see that again. And again, with Joe Burrow being completely healthy, I think that makes a big difference. I think this is going to be an amazing football game. I think both teams are going to show up. I think both teams are going to play well. You know, you mentioned that revenge factor for the Bills and them always playing well in those games. But, you know, the Bengals are going to be up for this game too. And, you know, you wonder how the Bills will handle this emotionally. I don't think it'll let them get in the way of their performance, but these are human beings too. And you got to kind of wonder, especially early on, I mean, how much of an emotional impact is that memory going to be? So again, I really think both teams show up and play well. I think we're going to see an excellent Sunday night football game. Final score, I have Bengals 27, Bills 24.
Now, this is so you have the Bengals squeaking it out by 3 points, but what I think is going to happen is they got all these new additions coming in. They got the corner Douglas coming in, which is going to help them create more turnovers. And I think the Bills are very upset from losing in the playoff game last week and what happened to Damar Hamlin about a month before. So I actually think the Bills will win this game. It'll be a great game. I got Bills 30, Bengals 20.
Wow. All right. And I hope your prediction is more correct than mine. Again, I think, you know, again, with those additions and with the motivational factor, I mean, certainly, you know, the Bills are going to be up for this game. But I think, you know, the Bengals are trying to get in playoff position and, you know, potentially still have a chance to win that division, although Baltimore is a couple of games ahead. You know, again, it could go either way. I think we both agree it's going to be pretty close. But you have it a 2-score game. I have it a field goal game. But like I said, I hope your prediction is more accurate than mine. And I guess only time will tell Sunday night.
We both hope so, and everybody on this channel and that Bills Mafia hopes so too. So let's get that win for Bills Mafia and for us too. So I see that speaking of the Bills, there's more news. We've seen that they have signed running back Leonard Fournette, aka Playoff Lenny, aka Always Remember, and aka Never Fournette, where he was. And we signed him to the practice squad yesterday. And with all the running backs we already have on the team, Joe, do you think that Playoff Lenny can help the team in their run game, run all the way to the Super Bowl like he did in Tampa with Brady just a few years ago?
Yeah, he's certainly not a guy I mind having on my team, but you know, I question what kind of a difference could he really make. I mean, again, you got James Cook doing well, Latavius Murray playing well. You know, you had that third solid running back in Damian Harris, who of course is injured at this point. So, you know, Fournette could come and make a difference that way. Again, you know, I'm not sure at this point how much of a difference he can actually make, but why not? I mean, if it didn't really cost you that much to get a guy like this on your team, why not? You know, and maybe he can make an excellent difference. Now, I don't know if you've heard anything because we just found out about this today. Any inklings about him actually, you know, playing in games, or, you know, is he on the practice squad a couple of weeks and then they bring him on? I don't know if you heard anything.
I think right now they got him on the practice squad just to learn the offense, but I think in a week or two they'll activate him because they're going to need a third running back down the line, and they're going to need him to be that goal line running back replacement of Damian Harris, which Damian Harris was doing a good job at the beginning of the year.
Right.
So, yeah, right now it's just keeping him on the practice squad, let him learn the offense.
Okay. And I could see that happening, and maybe him, again, coming into games in a couple of weeks, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. But there's one thing I will say. I will never Fournette you, Leonard. Always remember you.
It's a little ironic. Wasn't there like a big battle with him and some guys, I guess when he was with Jacksonville not too long, you know, a few years ago? There was a big melee in one of the games a few years back, and it involved Fournette that was going at that guy. He got ejected from a game at the stadium here, going after some Bills players. So kind of
going
ironic.
after Shaq Lawson in 2018. Yes, I do remember that.
Yes. So kind of ironic to have him here, but again, that's not a guy at all that I mind having on my team.
No, I don't. Especially he was a great running back at LSU. He's a former number 4 overall pick. Did great with Jacksonville, and then they didn't want to repay him because of the rookie salary cap, and then went to Tampa, won a Super Bowl there,
Right.
and now he's with the Bills looking to try to win another Super Bowl for him, but also the first for the Bills in franchise history.
I think that's the most valuable part of the signing right there. Now you have a Super Bowl champion on your team, a guy who knows how to win and played with Brady. And, I think that more than anything can be a help to this team, kind of just bringing a little bit more of a winning edge to it.
And they also don't call him Playoff Lenny for nothing either.
Exactly.
So speaking of also the Bills traded for cornerback Rasul Douglas. In this trade, the Bills receive Douglas and a 5th round pick from Green Bay in an exchange for a 3rd round pick in 2024 that's going to Green Bay. Now, what we know about Rasul Douglas is he's a 7-year vet. He was a 3rd round pick by the Philadelphia Eagles in 2017, came out of the same draft as Trey White did when we took him at 27th overall in 2017. He just turned 29 recently, and he's a man-to-man on an island cover corner, and he's a turnover creating machine too. So what do you think about adding a Trey White-esque type of quarterback right at the end of the deadline? What do you think of that, Joe? Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's a good move. I don't know enough about him. I didn't get a chance really to do much studying on him before our show here. But the Bills could use all the depth they can at the cornerback position, with White going down and, Elam not living up to the potential. Certainly the guys that have been playing here the last few weeks have done a fine job. But just to have some additional experience and additional depth and a guy that can create turnovers, like you said, certainly is, in my opinion, an excellent addition to that defense and can only help.
Yeah, exactly. And I saw a fact earlier today that he's had 10 interceptions in the last 3 years, while the Bills defense has yet to record an interception in this recent drought that they've had of having interceptions by corners. So yeah, that could come in and maybe change that around immediately. We'll see. But moving on to the 1:00 Los Angeles Rams at the Dallas Cowboys game. While the Cowboys finally played a complete game, the whole team shined with many trick plays to show for it. So, Joe, what did you think of this game, and did you watch this game?
Again, I spent most of Sunday, on NFL Red Zone, so which gives me some samples of each of the games there. And honestly, I expected Dallas to win big in this game. Just everything added up. They had slumped a little bit, and the Rams had some wins. And just things tend to even out. And Dallas is a completely different team at home than they are away. Again, not that they can't win on the road, but they're a much more dominant team at home in Dallas. So I kind of saw them winning this big, and I wasn't surprised with the result. And, they got a little sloppy because they got out to such an early big lead that they kind of took the foot off the pedal a little bit and let the Rams get a little bit back in it initially, but then they took it away again. And, it's almost like they were toying with them. It's like when they had to turn it on again, they easily did. And, again, the Rams have been playing decent football lately, but, Dallas showed them that they're that dominant Super Bowl contender here. And, again, they show that a lot more when they're playing in that Arlington Stadium there. So good win for them. I think Dallas needed a game like that. And I wasn't very surprised with the outcome. I don't know if you had a chance to check that game out, but what did you think?
I did have a chance to check that game out. I was at a friend and his wife from high school and his wife's house to watch a bunch of games on Sunday, and like some of the other guys came over with their girlfriends and watched the Cowboys game on the big screen too. So it was a big gathering last Sunday. But yeah, the Cowboys looked really good. I'm impressed with Brandon Aubrey as the kicker. Knock on wood, but I think Dallas, you finally found a kicker in like who knows how long, but he's money every time he makes a field goal or an extra point, and that's something you couldn't say about Greg Zuerlein when he was here, or even Brett Maher. So
yeah, Cowboys fans are hoping you're saying the same thing in January.
Exactly, and and like I said, Joe, I got to give him props because he was one of my USFL guys with
there you go,
with Birmingham, and Cavante Turpin looked good too. Also, one of my other USFL guys too. So yeah, it seems like both those USFL guys keep contributing on the Cowboys, which is really good to see.
Mm-hmm.
And the
I know that
always
makes you happy when those USFL guys produce.
Yeah, hopefully I get to see more during next spring football when more come to the NFL next year. But that's a conversation for another day. But yeah, those guys look good. That rookie corner, Duran looked really good on defense. Or not a rookie, second-year corner filling in for Trayvon Diggs, who's out with the torn ACL. But luckily, they said Diggs is on the recovering to coming back next year. And that kind of is the dismay of Cowboy Bills fans, because they wanted to see the Diggs brothers go up against each other, like maybe have Trayvon cover Stephon one-on-one, and it would have been cool because I'm going to that game on the 17th.
Oh, that's awesome.
Cowboys game. But we're not going to be able to see that. But my mom and I were still going to wear our Diggs shirts to the game in spirit, which is a good thing.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think a lot of us are very disappointed that we're going to miss that, that matchup. And again, the fact that they don't play for another 4 years after this. So, that might have been the only chance we had to see it. Who knows? But, again, hopefully, Diggs can recover soon and be back on the field. He's one of the more exciting players, just like his brother here. So hopefully he recovers quick.
And they're both like down to earth, just great guys too. Not just good football players. They're competitive. They want to win.
Mm-hmm.
They were brought up in a good family. I mean, their family's really nice, and they were Stefon Diggs. Yeah, he's not a diva, folks. I get tired of hearing that narrative. He's a competitor that wants to win. I mean, what guy doesn't flip out when his team has a bad game, or doesn't yell or get excited at his quarterback? He's pumping up the team.
Exactly. And what wide receiver is there in the NFL that doesn't get upset when they're not getting the ball? I mean, he's just like every other wide receiver. I think we've talked about this before. Mm-hmm. Again, you'd rather have guys like this on your team than guys that, are not actively involved. So every single wide receiver, or prime wide receiver in the NFL, wants the ball and complains when they don't get it. And he's just right there with them.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, though, because we're going to get into another wide receiver who's been complaining about not getting the ball later in the podcast. But go on. What were you saying?
No, that's basically it. Again, he's just like anybody else. But I agree with you. Again, the quality people, good upbringing, and so again, disappointing that we'll miss that potential matchup on the field this time.
Exactly, makes me tear up a little bit. But hey, you got to control your emotions, because this is a football, very physical, violent game, and things happen like that. So
right. Funny you say that. I'll tell a little interlude here. I just saw something that they said Matt Milano is hanging out with the team again, which is an encouragement. They don't think he's going to play again this season, but, they said it's very encouraging that he's back in Orchard Park and, hanging out with the team a little bit more. So, we talk about key injuries, and, he can impact play on the field, but certainly can be a locker room impact and as he was on the field. So that was pretty encouraging to hear today.
Or another one of those sideline player coaches where he puts the earpiece in his ear and they show him on the sideline being a player of teamwork and helping the other linebackers because, as they say, teamwork makes the dream work, which is good. So, especially this Bills team, they're all about teamwork, making that dream work, and that dream is to finally win the Super Bowl this year.
Exactly.
So now we're going to turn to the 4:00 Cincinnati at San Francisco 49ers game. And man, the 49ers really struggled offensively while the Bengals had a good balance of running and passing and ball control to control the time of possession and keep the 49ers offense on the sideline or at bay, beating the 49ers 31-17. So what did you think about this Bengals offensive game plan, Joe, and why do you think it was able to work so successfully?
Well, I can answer the one question, and just it worked. I can't answer the question or the second question though. How it worked so well. I'm scratching my head a little bit. I told you just a minute ago that I was not surprised at all with the Dallas result over the Rams. I was very surprised here. I thought the Bengals would keep it close. I thought the game would be within a touchdown, but I just thought the 49ers would pull away and take this game away. But it went the other direction. I mean, just Cincinnati seemed to get stronger as the game went on. And again, I really can't answer the question as to how they were so successful. But, it's probably the worst game we've seen Brock Purdy play. Just he wasn't throwing interceptions early in the season, and all of a sudden he's kind of in that slump. And Cincinnati's defense just had him totally figured out. And I forget how many interceptions he had, and he had at least 2 interceptions in this game, if not more. But here come the Bengals. Haven't we seen this how many times now? And they're all of a sudden, just when you think, okay, this is when they fade away, then here they come. Now, again, they have a tough game Sunday, and the Bills could easily win that game and put the Bengals at 4-4. But I think this team is going to be there in the end, and they're starting to hit their stride. And somebody on the radio said this, and it's not rocket science. I mean, anybody that knows a little something about football knows that as Joe Burrow gets healthier, this team gets better. And we're starting to see him at full health, and this team is definitely on the rise again.
Yeah, they are. But the one thing that the Bills, I think, can exploit is their offensive line isn't that great, Cincinnati, and the Bills, the way that McDermott's being more aggressive on defense. Burrow can run, but he's also one of the best quarterbacks in the league to also be prone to getting sacked a lot too. So if we could take advantage of blitzing a lot and having our front four just blast through the offensive line and get to the quarterback, maybe we could put Burrow on his back a couple times, and we'll see. But
we'll see how that, not only in this game, but how that affects the Bengals later on. I mean, they're in probably the toughest division in the NFL. I was looking at the standings earlier, and the Bengals are 4-3. There's 3 4-3 teams, I believe, in that division. And the Ravens are 6-2 in first place. But you could have. Don't be surprised if at least 3 teams from that division make the playoffs. Unless they all knock each other out, because they still have to play plenty of games against each other. And again, with a questionable offensive line like that, you wonder how that offense can hold up and how Joe Burrow can hold up. He's healthy now, but again, if he keeps taking solid hits, that could affect him going forward. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with that team. But again, right now, they're playing the same movie that they played the last couple of years.
But I do think this was a good film study for the Bills to watch this week. And I think they're definitely watching what Cincinnati was doing offensively with Burrow and how much time he was getting to throw and what their offensive line's blocking schemes are and all that jazz, like their defense, how their defensive coordinator also likes to bring the heat too with Allen. So that'll be interesting to see. It could be a battle of the defensive coordinators and the battle of the defensive game plans this week as well.
I agree.
So now we're gonna let's move on to the Sunday night matchup. Sorry, folks, between the Chicago Bears and the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, while the Chargers won the game 30-13, the national spotlight was on D2 quarterback turned Chicago Bears rookie starter Tyson Beauty Badgett. So, Joe, what did you think of his play in this game despite the loss?
Yeah, I didn't really catch much of this game here. I'm not surprised. I mean, the Chargers were due for a breakout game. The Bears had just won a game. I don't think the quarterback is that good, to be honest with you. He got some recognition for a good win the week before. And again, I didn't really get a chance to see much of him on Sunday. But I'm not surprised that the Chargers won this game big. I think they were 8-point favorites. I had them minus the 8 points, and they covered by plenty. And excellent personality, the Chicago quarterback there, but I don't think he's the most talented quarterback in the league, and certainly. Justin Fields, I think as soon as he's ready to play, will be back on the field. But I saw this coming. Again, the Chargers due for a breakout game. The Bears just had their best game of the season, and this game being in LA, although I didn't see much of it, but probably more Bears fans than Chargers fans probably, as that stadium usually has just as many visiting fans. But good win for the Chargers, and I think they're another team that you're going to see gain some momentum going forward here and start winning some games. And I think the Bills, when they play them, are going to be playing them at the wrong time. And, just as I predicted a while back, I could see the Chargers getting hot, getting into the playoffs, and perhaps making some noise there. But solid win for them. And the Bears are still, struggling, going forward.
They are struggling, but I think they're starting to still show signs of progress because Justin Fields is still learning how to play the game. He was playing good in his last 2 games before he got hurt. Tyson Bagent came in, won his first start, which was a good feel-good story as a Division II quarterback. But I still think he didn't play that bad against the Chargers. So, I mean, he kind of reminds me of a raw version of Josh Allen, the way he sits in the pocket and throws the ball and is able to escape pressure and make wild throws and everything. Now, while he's not at that level, yeah, you can see that fundamentally he could be that type of quarterback. He just has to keep working on his mechanics and other stuff in the game. But I see a pretty good quarterback out of him. But yeah, I do think Justin Fields will be returning. And what I did like was Justin Fields being a good teammate to Tyson Bagent on the sideline there with his earpiece, and they're kind of coaching them up. And as we said, teamwork makes the dream work. They're even in a losing season with Chicago right now, and that's going to pay dividends moving forward and hopefully in the beginning of next year in training camp and preseason as well.
Yeah, I'd love to see him succeed. I mean, I have a spot in my heart for those D2 guys. I mean, I went to a Division III college. So those D2 guys that make it to the NFL, I'm always rooting for them. So, and again, great personality, and saw the interviews with him after he won that first start and everything. So I'd love to see the guy succeed. I just think he's not quite ready for prime time at this point.
Okay. So lastly, turning our attention to the Monday Night Football game and the Vegas Raiders taking on the Detroit Lions. While the Lions won 26-14, they bounced back after losing to Baltimore last week. And also, after the game with the Lions or with the Raiders losing, we saw a very disgruntled Davante Adams complaining that he wasn't getting the ball enough and that they're not using him effectively. So first of all, Joe, what do you think about the Lions bounce back win? And also, what do you think of Davante Adams being upset and pouting that he's not being used well in the Raiders passing attack?
Well, first of all, as far as the game is concerned, I give the Raiders a lot of credit. I knew the Lions would bounce back, after that a tough loss to the Ravens, and I expected them to win a lot more handily than they did. They were just when you think they're going to break away in this game, the Raiders stayed right with them and kept it very close for a while. And the Lions pulled away, but still, that was a hard fought victory. And I give a lot of credit to the Raiders for going to Detroit there and keeping up with the Lions. As far as Devontae Adams, I mean, I don't know why he's surprised. I mean, he took the contract at a team. You're going from Aaron Rodgers. Now I know, Carr was the quarterback there last year, but I don't know how he could be surprised. The fact that Carr is still as good a quarterback as he is, he's a step down from Aaron Rodgers. So Adam should have known then that things weren't going to be the same. And now once Carr leaves the team, again, nothing against Garoppolo. I mean, he's a decent quarterback still, but he's banged up, and I don't see how Devontae Adams didn't see this coming. I'm surprised in a way that he didn't get moved. He's not happy there. It's not a good quarterback situation at this point. So I'm a little bit surprised that he didn't get moved somewhere else. But again, we just talked about Stefon Diggs, and just like any other wide receiver, an all-star, all-pro wide receiver is going to be upset when they're not getting the ball. And, it's, again, a little bit of a difficult situation, but you commend him. I mean, you're not surprised that he's upset, but I as a football fan, I'm not surprised where he's in this situation. You took the contract to go somewhere else, and with the chance that this could happen, and it did. So he's not going to be getting the ball much more than he is now, unfortunately. They're not going to bring Aaron Rodgers in there, or a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers anytime soon. So, I think he's going to stay frustrated all year, and I'm a little bit surprised that he didn't get moved.
Well, no, the reason why I didn't get moved is because the asking price was too much. It's a lot of money you got to pay him. Like, there was rumors that the Bills were going to trade for him, but they would have had to give up like an abundance of picks, like a first, a second, a sixth round pick in 2024 or 2025, and then just to get one more pick and get him.
Right.
So yeah, the Bills aren't going to do that. I mean, Brandy B knows it's about being smart, not flashy at the deadline. And that's what we did. And a lot of teams figured that out. And that's why Adams is still put with the Raiders.
That's a good point. I'm sure, most other teams thought exactly the same way. It's just not worth giving up what they were looking for. But yeah, I'm curious to see how this plays out the rest of the season, because the Raiders are nowhere near a playoff team. And again, the quarterback situation's not going to change. It's not like they're avoiding him. It's not like he's ineffective. It's very difficult to get him the ball.
Exactly. But I mean, while the Raiders, they're not going to be a playoff team, but keep an eye on them. They're definitely going to be a competitive team as the season goes on. I mean, say what you want about McDaniels, but he's got a team that doesn't really have a lot. And he's actually doing a pretty good coaching job, keeping that team focused and being ready to play another team for 60 minutes every night. I mean, it's not translating to wins, but at least it could translate to wins down the line, and maybe it'll carry momentum into next year, and they'll have a good attitude about how they finish the year this year.
Yeah, I agree. And I think this Lions game is an example of that. They played their hearts out. And again, they kept up with the Lions for a little while. And just like I said, when you thought the Lions were going to pull away and be done with them, they would score and stay right with them. So I totally agree with what you just said. And I think they proved that on Monday night.
Yeah, they did. So, well, it looks like, guess what, Joe? It is now time again for our question of the week segment. And as I always say, what would a Buffalo Sports Conversation Room podcast with Jamie Malloy and Joe Dalio be without the question of the week segment, right?
That's it. And the last couple of weeks, I got to sit and laugh at our guests who had to try to figure these questions out. But I guess the spotlight is on me again for this one.
Okay, I'm just about to ask that. Joe, would you like to tackle this week's question?
I'll take it.
Okay, so here's your question. Can you guess this Hall of Fame quarterback? He had a 62, 63, and 4 record as a starter, threw 173 touchdowns and 220 interceptions. Is it Joe Willie Namath, Roger Staubach, Otto Graham, or Bob Greasy?
Oh my goodness. Now, can you say the beginning part again there? And then just actually, if you could just read the whole thing again, just
Yes. So this Hall of Fame quarterback was 62 and 63 and 4 as a starter, had 173 touchdown passes, but also threw for 220 interceptions. Is it Joe Willie Namath, Roger Staubach, Otto Graham, or Bob Greasy?
oh my goodness. I have no idea for this one. Now I'm gonna guess. I don't think Joe Namath is in the Hall of Fame. I might be wrong about that, so I'm gonna eliminate him. I don't know enough about Otto Graham. I'm gonna go with my gut here. I think Roger Staubach didn't have that many interceptions, so I am gonna try taking a guess with Bob Greasy.
Oh, I'm sorry, Joe. The correct answer was Joe Namath.
Okay,
Joe
so he is
Willie
a Hall of
Namath.
Fame quarterback. Okay,
Right, because he won that Super Bowl 3 upset over the Baltimore Colts, and then he made a promise saying that just give me one Super Bowl, and then the Jets could never win another one, and they haven't been the same since he made that promise.
that's right. Okay, yeah, I didn't think he was in the Hall, but that was an excellent question.
Mm-hmm. Well, now that we are at the halfway point of the NFL, I thought it would give us a chance to talk about 4 players who have shined for the Buffalo Bills thus far. Let's start with running back James Cook. At 5 foot 11 inches and 190 pounds, the go-to running back has accounted for nearly 56% of the Bills' offensive plays. 3 times this year, he has ran for over 100 yards and with 4.8 yards per attempt. The 24-year-old is tied with Christian McCaffrey as the 9th most efficient back in the NFL. And Cook also shines in the pass game, averaging 10.7 yards per catch, showcasing his talents on the field. So, Joe, what are your thoughts about our main running back and our star running back in Cookie here?
Yeah, those that have watched this show consistently know that I've always been a big fan, a big backer of James Cook, even going back to training camp last year. I thought he was a great draft pick, coming from a national champion in Georgia there. And, of course, game 1 last year, he fumbles his first carry and then, was put to the doghouse for a few games. But I just, saw it coming and was hoping it was coming that, they still had Singletary last year. But I said it was, and not just me saying this, of course, many people did and saw this coming with James Cook being eventually the feature back of this team. And then starting this season as that feature back, he is not disappointed, and he continues to grow. He continues to learn and continues to do well. He is on pace right now for 1,000-yard season. You believe he's got 490 yards around there, as we're just about at the halfway point. So he could easily reach the 1,000-yard mark. And I'd like to see them actually involve him more in the passing game. I think one of the reasons they drafted him was because he was an excellent receiving back. And I don't think they've done that enough. I think partially because they have so much wide receiver depth and they've spread the ball around so well. So, they haven't had a chance to throw him the ball as much as maybe we think what they should. But I kudos to him, and I think he's only going to get better. I don't think we've seen the best of James Cook yet. And, he's definitely changed the dynamic of this offense too. I keep saying on this podcast how I believe the Bills, need a greater running attack. And because of him and how well he's doing and the steps that he's taken, the Bills are able to run the ball that 25, 30 times a game and do so effectively. So, if we're giving grades out, I'm going to say an A for James Cook, and you seeing the same thing?
Exactly. I love Cookie. I think he's helped um, revise the Bills' running game where they're not going to be able to just air it out. They can at least impose their will on the defense with running the ball down teams' throats at the end of the game, and then set up the deep ball, which will help them in the playoffs this year. If they can use that format in the playoffs, because we've seen it worked with Tom Brady and the Patriots all those years when they started running the ball, teams knew it was coming and they still couldn't stop it, which is why they won all those Super Bowls. So I think the Bills kind of have that Patriots format in their repertoire this year. So
Right. Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, now let's take a look at Stefon Diggs at 29 years old and as one of the vocal leaders of the team, and I mean very vocal, which we already talked about.
Mm-hmm.
He now has 64 receptions, totaling 748 yards with 6 touchdowns, and already having a lot of chemistry with Josh on the field. They are one of the best duos in the league. Joe, what do you think of Stefon Diggs and his production through the first half of the season? And if they want to ask if we digs it, I think both of you and I, we definitely digs his style of play, right?
Yeah, for sure. And he's been a great receiver in the NFL for, several years now. A great receiver with the Vikings. One of my favorite plays in the history of football, with that last second catch in the playoff game against New Orleans there. But, and a pro since he's been here with the Bills. And after everything he's done and after all the impacts that he's made with both the Vikings and the Bills, he's having probably his best season of all right now. We've talked about this a few times on the show in past weeks that kind of hard to believe a great receiver like Diggs is can get better. And I forget how many 100-yard games three in a row where he was at 100, 120 yards receiving and just doing an amazing job. And kind of surprising, I was looking at some of the stats today, as far as the rest of his career. Now, he's not on pace to match his highest yards total, but he is on pace to exceed his highest receptions total and his highest touchdown total. So, that's pretty impressive. Again, those totals were already amazing. And the fact that he could exceed them now, is amazing enough. But again, the most valuable part of Stefon Diggs is what he brings to the team, the leadership, the motivation, the drive. And again, just when Josh Allen's getting down on the sidelines, there's Diggs trying to pump him up and get him going. So yes, again, he's going to be a diva wide receiver sometimes and complain that he's not getting the football enough. But as we said, that's something that we don't mind seeing, from a wide receiver. We want to see guys that want to get the ball and want to excel. So as amazing as this guy has been with his previous team and with this team, the fact that he's potentially having his best season of all is amazing. And if he could take that into the playoffs and lead this team far, then that's even more impressive and more valuable than anything.
Exactly. I want to take a little trip down memory lane here. Eric Moulds did that in the beginning of the 2000 season. He was complaining that he wasn't getting the ball enough. And that's what we loved hearing from a star receiver like him back in the day, especially like that was the beginning of the culture of the 17-year playoff drought and everything.
Right. Yeah. And like I said, every top-notch wide receiver that I've been watching football 45 years, it's been happening forever. Terrell Owens, I mean, you can name hundreds of them. that complain when they don't get the ball. And like I said, there's tons of them, and they all do. But again, can you complain about that as long as it's not a detriment to the team? Again, I find that commendable, and that's the kind of guy you want.
Exactly. So now let's take a look at 8-year veteran Leonard Skinner Floyd. Like my reference there, my Bermanism there.
I do.
Anyway, leading the team with 6.5 sacks this season. He doesn't seem to be slowing down. He's a big reason why the defense has totaled 28 sacks with Von Miller finally returning to the team. And do you believe that Floyd has pulled all of his weight while Miller was out and is still hurt and doesn't still seem to be 100%, even though he's back on the field?
Yeah, I think he's more than pulled his weight, and I like your Chris Bermanism there with the nickname in there. But yeah, this guy, I mean, he's a veteran and doing well and doing great. He's always done well, with his previous teams, but just stepping in here like he has. And what's impressed me the most is the sack totals. I just looking at this before and I'm kind of blanking at it now, but he is definitely on pace to shatter his sack totals from previous seasons. It's funny because his tackle totals might be a little higher, in previous seasons, but he's making other impacts like sacks and things like that. So, tackles for losses and things that he's really making an impression on this defense. And again, a defense that's had a lot of key injuries and that needs a lot of depth and needs guys to step up. He's definitely one of the top guys that maybe you didn't see this happening earlier in the season or in the beginning of the season, but since training camp and since preseason has shown that he belongs on this team and has really taken strides to help this defense and has been a very valuable player for it.
Yeah, and like I said, as previously mentioned, Von Miller's been back on the field, but he still doesn't look right. I don't know if his knee ever really healed properly as they thought it would, but that's okay because Leonard Floyd has definitely taken that Von Miller role and has just been a beast with the sacks this year.
Yes. And that's they need a guy like that, and again, it's kind of interesting because he's never had high sack totals before. And the fact that he's, on his way to go over that this year, he's on that same pace as we're halfway through the season. I think I looked at this again and, he had like 9.5 sacks, 10.5 sacks, 10 sacks, though he was averaging 10 sacks, previously with previous teams. And I think he's already at 6 now. So, definitely the potential to exceed that. And again, at a time where this team really needs that kind of defensive production.
And I got another new saying. You know how they say teamwork makes the dream work?
Uh-huh.
I say sacks pay you the racks, the racks of money you put up to your ear.
I like that one. You're going to have to patent that one.
Well, I should.
You're right.
I should. It's fine. It's about time I came up with something original like that. But yeah. Anyway.
And everybody watching this show, you heard it here first.
Yes, you did. We appreciate that. And lastly, let's talk about middle linebacker Terrell Bernard. His production has earned him a leadership spot as he has had an exceptional showing in his first 8 games. He totaled 2 sacks, 2 interceptions, and 3 fumbles. No other football player in the league has tallied these incredible stats. What do you think of Bernard's play this far? Joe, your thoughts?
Oh my goodness. You talk about somebody stepping up. I kept calling him the last couple of weeks Terrell Milano, because he seems to do the same things that Milano does. He's all over the field. He's making impact plays, whether, stopping a big run or getting a sack or, even an interception. He's basically taken that role. pretty much. And he has been, in the last 4 or 5 weeks, especially since Milano's gone, the most valuable player on defense, in my opinion. He's just all over the field. The same things that we would say about Milano. It's like that he's all over the place. And like every time there's a play, it seems like he's in the middle of it. Every time there's a big defensive play, it seems like he's in the middle of it. And it's funny because during the preseason, his name got brought up. Remember, we were talking about the middle linebacker battle and, who's going to get this starting job and what's going to happen. And, the coach and general manager were both, really praising him and giving him shout outs and basically handing the job to him. And then I believe he got hurt in the preseason and, came back and started slowly. But I think he has more than exceeded the potential that they had for him and that we saw, that any of us fans and even coaches saw coming. I mean, again, those coaches saw something and they were right. But even I think his play exceeded what they might have expected too. I mean, this guy just keeps getting better and better every week.
Yes, he does. And he's another sack machine as well. And he's also a very smart player. And he's another one of your defensive back. He's a defensive back in a linebacker's body where he's smaller, but he's got great speed off the line and can just get after the quarterback and create sacks. And he can also drop back into coverage and create interceptions too, like a safety or a corner. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And he's got that instinct, that of intercepting passes just like a safety would have or a cornerback would have as well. So just A+. I mean, this guy's been incredible and hopefully he stays healthy. And he's been, again, especially the last few weeks, a cornerstone of that and the MVP of that defense.
Mm-hmm. Well, it looks like now we are coming to the end of our show. So, Joe, where can we find you in this crazy social media world as we turn the page to November 1st, 2023?
Yeah, kind of crazy that we're turning to November already. Still a great time for sports. We got a World Series going on. We got excellent pro and college football and, a couple of my other favorite sports, hockey and basketball going on. So college basketball is going to start in a couple of weeks. So sports heaven, we were talking about it, right? So, I'll put my 2 cents in on X, on Twitter, Joe Dell Sports there. So, check it out, follow me there. And again, I put my 2 cents and statistical information on there and, hope to see you there.
Yep. And then as for me, you can follow yours truly at Bill's Chat 1 at Bill's Mafia Chat and at Jamie Malloy, the unbiased journalist at DJ Dog Tags on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. And that account, I'm finally verified on that one. And also DefiantTakesFootball.com, where I'm a sports writer and I cover stories about the Bills, Syracuse football, and spring football. And today I actually did a special article about the Dallas Cowboys bouncing back and playing like winners and as a team. So make sure you guys check that out at www.DefiantTakesFootball.com. Thank you very much for listening. And remember, folks, teamwork can still make the dream work with the Chicago Bears. The Lions bounced back with a roar against the Raiders. And the Bills signed running back Leonard Never Fournette aka playoff Lenny to the practice squad and traded for cornerback Rasul Douglas. And guess what? One thing remains true. And this is what Chris Berman always says, and I'm going to say it to here. Nobody circles the trade deadline wagon like the Buffalo Bills. See you next time, folks.
All right. Good night, everybody.